All right. Moya Ulight, Moya Upright. Welcome all back to another episode of Sahel Thursdays, where we get to learn about geopolitics, the things that are going on around the continent. As I always say, we know as South Africans, we think that the whole world is just here in South Africa. We're like the African Americans who are just learning about the fact that Africa is not just a country, it's a continent. So this is where we try and get to kill our ignorance and figure out what's going on. As we've said in the other previous episodes, we've been seeing what's happening with the Tri Alliance there between Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And it's been very interesting, especially all the coups and what it means about the minerals resources and about government there. And we've been wondering how that can kind of translate across the continent so that we have more power over our economic resources and our mineral resources. So, welcome all. We are streaming on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And as usual, we've got Mam Kanyisi Lilishfil Chabalala and we've got Oladele Dosunmo from Nigeria. And then we are going to break it down. So, tonight, as you saw on the poster, we were trying to figure out what is this Ecowas because we keep hearing about Ecowas. So it's the economy, the states. There are countries in West Africa that have come together to form an alliance to kind of to form an alliance. But that's what we're here to learn about. Let me start with you, Dr. Kanye. Good evening.
Good evening, Tsiki. How are you?
Are you winning there?
Um, you can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Okay. I said good evening. How are you? Good evening to the viewers. It's raining heavily where I am, so I think my Wi-Fi is a bit unstable. So they will forgive me. The listeners, just live with it, please. I'm good. I hope you're also good. It's a special session because at least I saw you physically today.
Yes. Oladele, good evening. Are you well today? Oh, you forgot to mute your microphone. Shame, you're being a good boy today. You
Can
didn't say
mute?
much to the speakers about the
Yeah,
mics.
I'm behaving myself today. I haven't got the ecos like I had because last time I was in Nigeria, but now I'm in the belly of the beast back in the UK where I don't want to be at the moment. But greetings, everybody. Greetings.
You're back in the first world country where everything's
Yeah,
good.
no, we are the first world country. They're the backward countries. I'm back in the backward countries. I was in the first world in Nigeria, so it's the reverse.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do. So tonight we're talking about the economic community of the West African states. Perhaps we can break down who are these West African states and why would they have to have an economic community. Mam Kanye, let me ask you to start so that you can set the tone for us. Oh, Mam Kanye, you forgot your mic also. I see we're having a slow day, all of us today. Your mic,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank
cool.
you. Thank you, Tsiki. Yeah, why we chose the topic is because Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger have decided to exit ECOWAS, and also because the first passport of the AES, their Confederation Alliance of Sahel States in English, was issued. So they are going to have a passport amongst the three of them. And I think it intrigued me because I asked myself, aren't they isolating themselves? I mean, the ECOWAS is the biggest of these political economic blocks. Like we have SADC, East Africa is EAC, which is the smallest. I think you have the Central African one too, COMESA. So I was like, aren't they isolating themselves though? And I thought, oh, okay, but maybe it's worth checking what is ECOWAS for us to know if there is value in them staying in ECOWAS, or is value in them leaving ECOWAS. And I found some interesting points about ECOWAS. I always want to know who's the funder. Because in capitalism, they say whoever pays for it owns it. And then I realized that, okay, funding comes from member states, it's a levy, but we know from the AU, not all the countries pay their levy on time, not all the countries pay at all. Some countries will always claim poverty and lack of money, so you end up having the big brother type, where the countries that have are always the ones that are sort of paying more and bailing out the other smaller states, or incurring the burden financially. So that's what I found. There is a levy for states, but the African Development Bank also provides grants to ECOWAS, a regional electricity regulatory authority, to stimulate cross-border electricity trade and improve energy access. And then the European Union and BMZ, the Action Institute support to ECOWAS, is jointly funded by the European Union and BMZ. The BMZ is the German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. So Germany is part of the EU. If the EU and then you have this BMZ on the side, it means Germany is funding twice. So obviously its voice will be louder there. So they are contributing as an EU member. They're also contributing under the BMZ, this German Federal Ministry for Economic Development and Cooperation thing. Then there's another interesting one, the KFW. It's a small f, so it's a capital K, a small f, and a capital W. In cooperation with KFF, which is a German word, a project is setting up a funding mechanism for ECOWAS Commission to support stabilization in selected ECOWAS members. We don't know stabilization of what. But I was interested in finding out who's the KFW. KFW is one of the world's leading promotional banks. KFW has been committed to improving economic, social, and environmental living conditions across the globe on behalf of the Federal Republic of Germany and the federal states since 1948. To do this, it provides funds totaling 111.3 billion euros. And that's a figure of 2003 alone, not just to ECOWAS, but like globally. So it would seem to me like Germany is very busy in ECOWAS. So while the EU is funding, Germany has this BMZ, which funds separately from the EU, which is a German Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development. And then we have this KfW, which also represents the Republic of Germany. I then asked myself, I'll come to the divisions that are internal within ECOWAS, which is another thing that shocked me. I then had to ask myself, Germany, France, your traditional Western European countries, Germany, France, UK, Portugal, Spain, the former colonizers, really, what we call Western Europe, Belgium, Switzerland, they never really vote against one another. They have a common position, especially because now the EU is not like the AU. It's a promulgation institute. What do I mean? The EU is lawmaking. The AU does not make laws, it suggests. Member states can say, I'm not implementing. They can take 20 years because there's no punitive measure. On the other hand, the EU has a parliament which makes laws which are, looking for the legal term, which are obligatory. It is, as long as we are a member, it is not optional. So the EU is government, for people who want to understand it in simpler terms. So if the EU is government, they will always agree with one another. So the fact that Germany is funding extra on the side, it means it's possible for France to say, Germany, because we are funding extra on the side, demand that the three Sahel countries that have formed an alliance, that is Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, demand that ECOWAS invade them. They can. I mean, whoever funds it owns it. And Germany will sympathize with France. I mean, it's our experience. Traditionally, Western Europe stands together, and America, and Canada, and New Zealand, and Australia. That's what we say. When we say West, we talk about those countries. So, yes, it is the first thing that I found. And then I concluded, I think they're better off outside of ECOWAS, actually. They can do things better for themselves and learn to fund themselves and to self-sustain. It's a nice little weight in the area of tax justice and illicit financial flows and state debt, what they call sovereign debt. We call it domestic resource mobilization, where you are learning to mobilize resources internally on your own, and we are not relying on external funding, which comes with conditions. Yeah, I think I'll leave it there and then allow my brother Oladele to come in.
Just to chime into what my sister Mama Kanishile just said. Like you said, EU is the major funders of the ECOWAS. EU is the major. Just breaking it down here, not just EU. Then you got the just disbanded USAID. You've got it's actually crazy. You got the World Bank. Yeah. You got obviously we talked about the African Development Bank as well. But in terms of the contributions, like Markanye said, the ECOWAS funds the organization through levies. That's 0.5% levies from the countries. But the major contributors, their contribution based on our research, it's unbelievable actually, just looking at this. It's between 50 to 70%. So if the funder, the external funding is that much, what does that tell you about ECOWAS? So it basically tells you that they don't control whatever they're doing there. So whoever plays the tune, how did you say that word? Whoever plays the pipe dictates the tune. So if they're funding you so much, so what does that tell you? And like Mark Hensley said, I'm actually going to agree with her that the Sahel region, they're better off because whoever's in the ECOWAS is being shackled. If you notice when the coups happened in 2013, Nigeria, my country, was being leaned on by the French, by the Western powers, basically to go to war with Burkina Faso and Niger. But they could not do that because don't forget, Nigeria is in close proximity with Niger. They're just above Nigeria. And because of the historical links, the Fulanis and all those historical ties, it would have been impossible. They would not allow that to happen. Basically, they put pressure on the government, so don't you try. The funny thing about the whole thing is that Tinubu was being leaned on by the Western hegemonic powers, but internally, the Fulanis and the Hausas were leaning on him, saying, "You know what? You better not try." So you can see that there's a conflict there. But obviously, he had to listen to the guys here because him not listening to them would have been more problems for him. Because obviously, come elections, they would have gone against him. So, yeah, like we're talking about the funding there, and you're looking at the alliances and the geopolitics between the whole system, you can see how messy it is. So, as we carry on talking, based on that, I'll say, you know what? We need to cut ties with the hegemonic powers, and if they fund our organizations, what's the point? What's the point? So I'll leave it there for now.
You know what's most fascinating about this conversation? I mean, it's really exposing a lot. Now things are becoming clear. Is that, these countries, like these Western countries, they get to dictate even the value of our currencies and how
Yes.
convenient it should be that their currencies are stronger than ours, despite the fact that they don't have any mineral resources backing them up like ours do. So, I mean, where does that leave Africans and our agency? Because really, like, we're being bamboozled, like live and direct. So, I mean, how should we proceed forward as Africans so that we can get our independence?
I think before we answer you, Nsigi, let's continue and expose what ECOWAS is so people understand that the three countries are better off outside of ECOWAS for me. ECOWAS consists of two operating institutions to implement the policies: the ECOWAS Commission and the ECOWAS Bank for Investment and Development, formerly known as the Fund for Cooperation. In addition, ECOWAS includes the following institutions: the ECOWAS Commission, Community Court of Justice, Community Parliament, ECOWAS Bank for Investment, West Africa Health Organization, Intergovernment Action Group, And then, this is the part that caught my attention. There are two sub-regional blocks within ECOWAS. I am going to repeat that. There are two sub-regional blocks within ECOWAS. The first block is called the West African Economic and Monetary Union, also known in its French acronym as UEMOA. So, UEMOA. It's an organization of 8, mainly French-speaking states within ECOWAS, which share a customs union and currency union. It was established in 1994 and is intended to counterbalance the dominance of English-speaking economies in the bloc. I'm sorry, Nsigi, I'm not sure you allow insults on Moya, but honestly, in the Gen Z language, how fucked up can this get? You are all Africans. You are forming the West Africa Economic and Monetary Union as former French colonies to counter the dominance of the English-speaking countries within yourselves. Right there, you are still colonized because you are still divided by the colonial language of your masters. They don't blame them though. Don't be too quick to blame them. There's another one, the West Africa Monetary Zone, WAMZ, WAMZ, established in 2000, comprises of 6 mainly English-speaking countries within ECOWAS, which plan to work towards adopting their own currency. Huh? So what is ECOWAS? They are planning to adopt their own currency. I was interested because I'm like, there aren't so many English speaking. Why are they 6? So I had to look them up. It's the Gambia, it's Ghana, it's Nigeria. We know those. Then there's Sierra Leone, which never really was a colony because Sierra Leone was formed to dump, literally, because that's what they were doing, freed slaves after the abolition of slavery. But then after the 1884 to 88 Berlin Conference for the Scramble of Africa, it became a British protectorate, like your Lesotho, Botswana, and Eswatini. So it's English speaking. Then I was like, so who's the 6th one? It's Guinea-Conakry, which actually is a French-speaking country. How they came to join this union of English speakers formed to counterbalance the domination of the French English-speaking ones, who within ECOWAS want to form their own currency within ECOWAS. I don't know, guys. I don't know what to say. So ECOWAS is divided according to English and French, and they are both fighting each other to keep each other at bay. The English-speaking countries shouldn't dominate the French-speaking and vice versa. And I mean, it's just holding my head. I think my brother Oladele, I'm just gonna let you come in here because I'm just getting on the rough side of the language because this is madness.
Yeah, sis, you know what? Because as we break it down, you can see when we're talking about African liberating itself, these are the things we look at, because what's the point of you being in an alliance of 15 African countries, and then within that alliance, you split between the French, you split between the English? Make it make sense. So when we're talking about African independence, African relying on themselves and doing for themselves, you can actually see as we expose this that basically we're not, basically what we within the system, basically what we're doing, we're becoming hegemonic gatekeepers of the countries that we're trying to get away from. So in a nutshell, we're still tied in to the imperialistic advances of these countries. So the question is, are we really free? So when you're looking at the Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso getting away from that system, you can actually see the reason why they're doing it. Because what's the point of being in an alliance that's working against what we're trying to get away from? So even though we're not coming to the conclusion yet, but based on the few things that we said so far, you can see that these three countries are actually doing the right thing. What we, with these kind of series, what we're hoping to make people realize in Africa, we Africans basically need to basically break away from the umbilical cord of the colonial tentacles, because with the economic control, with security control, I know the three countries, Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali, they've got I think they've just created a 5,000 strong military alliance together, so they can actually build their own military might. Well, they're doing that right now. Obviously, the new passport they've just that started. I think that started in January 25th this year. The passport was what came into operation. So basically, and then economically, they're talking about agricultural integration, security integration, obviously free movement within themselves. These are things that the rest of the continent should be following. But how can we actually be free when we're working against the systems or working with the systems that we're supposed to go against? So this is the battle we as Africans are fighting. When we're talking about freedom, freedom doesn't come easy, and we know that Ibrahim Traore and Goita and I can't remember his name, the other guy from Niger, they consistently are going to fight threats to their lives. But that's the price. That's the price of freedom. But we need more people like them who are going to look their oppressor in the face and say, well, excuse you, I don't want to swear, but so you lot, go back, and that needs to happen. So yeah, I'll let it raise there. I'll let it stop there for now. Let my sister come back in. So I just have to go on to what she was saying, because as we have this conversation, I get angry. I actually do get angry, because we need to free ourselves, but we keep tying ourselves to the system that we're supposed to get rid of. So the Sahel region, the Sahel trio are doing the right thing. I think every other African country should take a lead, because we had a podcast last Sunday, and we were speaking to Ezili Danto. And she basically talked about the Ibrahim Traore. They are giving us a blueprint. This is a blueprint for the way forward for Africa. Basically, they're the shining light for the rest to follow. But the thing is that with the 51 other African countries, are they going to take a lead, basically follow these guys? Because what you're scared to do, they're doing. All you have to do is just come in, from alliances. And all we don't need every African country to be, all we need is a block about 10 or 15 countries together. That's how it starts. And that's where the unity starts. And this is basically what every African country should be looking at doing. Because once you have a block of 10 to 15 countries, they're not gonna bomb all of you together. It's impossible. But as long as we go individually, and that's how they pick us apart. Because you have a Togo, you have a Benin, you have a Ghana, doing deals by that, on their own. It doesn't make sense. So that's why, as an ECOWAS bloc, even though they're ECOWAS, but you can see they still come, the legitimate powers will still go to these countries and actually negotiate with them individually, even within the ECOWAS bloc. Make it make sense. Whereas if you're not talking about talking to the EU do it as a bloc, they're a illegal entity. So you don't deal with them singly. But we as Africans are doing the opposite.
Earlier on, Mamkan, you talked about something so interesting. So you talked about the fact that the differences between the AU and the EU. And obviously then the AU is funded by the EU. So does that mean that the AU is just a toothless dog?
If you want to be that rough and put it that way, yeah, I can argue against those facts, because it's capitalism. Whoever pays for it owns it. We know that. So for me, that's why the AU to date, it's still non-promulgative. Yes, they come with laws, and they will say the AU on this, the AU on that, and the AU on that. But let's look at country adoption. It's not mandatory because it's not punitive. There's nothing the AU can do, which is why the Pan-African Parliament itself, for me, is another useless structure. It's just a waste of money, to be honest with you, because they get together to do what? To suggest. That's what the AU is already doing. It's a suggestive body. So why are we having two suggestive bodies? The Pan-African Parliament, unlike the EU Parliament, is not a promulgative body. They write recommendations for the AU, but the AU itself is a recommendation body, because if you look at the things they pass are not obligatory to countries. Countries just ignore or take their own time or don't ratify. If you haven't ratified something, it's not mandatory for you to do that thing. And we've had this podcast before, and I started by saying, if the seat of the AU, which is Ethiopia, Addis Ababa, is asking 52 African countries to pay for visa to enter Ethiopia, the seat of their supposedly own parliament, I go home. I rest my case. Imagine EU countries having to pay visa to enter Belgium or Germany, where the organs, the seats of the governing bodies of the EU are. I mean, it's just, what is that? What is that? So for me, and it's things like this. Like ECOWAS cannot be a promulgative body because it is already divided between France and Britain. So obviously, those 6 English-speaking countries within, they get their tune from Britain. Those French countries within get their tune from France. One of the viewers posted that they did try and come with a currency, and he even named the currency, the person. And France objected. Who do you think France used to object? Those countries that are formed to protect French hegemony within ECOWAS. So it's honestly, you know, when we discuss African things, it tires, it makes you angry, so you want to be abusive with your language, or it depresses you. So, but for me, I'm glad. There was also one comment from the viewers that said the 3 countries from the Sahel leaving ECOWAS has actually exposed what ECOWAS is. Because it means to date, ECOWAS cannot embrace these countries, even if they can see the inroads that these countries are making. Because those that are formed under the English language will be dictated to by Britain. Those that are formed under the French will be dictated to by France. And God help us, there's no war that breaks out between Britain and France, because that will really put the ECOWAS at a microscope for us, because you will see the French-speaking countries, those that have formed themselves, will be supporting France, and those that have formed themselves under the English will be supporting Britain. So yeah, I think I'll leave it here again and just allow my brother Oladele to come in and also comment on that question.
Yeah, like we're saying, you know, when these guys took over, when the Ibrahim Traore, obviously, when the coup happened, okay, you can see, and this is basically the insanity and the stupidity amongst African nations. Okay, we're talking about democracy, yeah? Democracy that we've followed in Africa for all these years. Has it served the interest of Africans? No. Because basically it's been a copy and paste from the West to Africa, which basically never served the interest of the people. It served the interest of the hegemonic powers. Okay, we talked about the coup. Is a coup a necessary thing to do? But if you look at those 3 countries, the coups are something instigated by the people. They instigated these coups because what we followed as a democratic process is not working. And when you continue to what's the word I'm using? When you continue to belittle belittle the people who owns the wealth of a country or continent, there's so much poverty in Africa, yet we're so rich. The people that you're supposed to be serving is not benefiting from your commonwealth. And we follow democracy all this while. Nigeria's had democracy since 1999, probably the second democracy. Since 1999, I can categorically tell you that the benefits to the people, I'd say about 90 to 95% of the people, is minuscule, very, very little, because poverty has got worse. The standard of living has just got worse. And we're talking, you're talking about the currency. Our currency is so weak and it's dictated to us by the hegemonic powers. Basically, they tell us to weaken your currency. They tell you, they dictate for you to weaken your currency so they can have a more influence on you. And excuse my language, I don't want to swear, but the stupid government officials will listen to them, which means your buying power is little. So you have no power. So, and you want to tell me that democracy works for Africa? No, it doesn't. It does not. And this is basically what these Sahel trios sing. If you want to free yourself, you have to do the work. And I said that the last time, we need to do the work. The work that needs to be doing, the Sahel trio are doing. So the rest of the continent should be looking. If we really want to be free, if we want to free ourselves, the rest of the continent should look at what these guys are doing. We need to dictate our economy. We need to dictate it. People talking about the pegging against the dollar. Why are we pegging our economy against the dollar? That's useless to us. We need to form an economic alliance amongst the African countries. We have the resources. Why don't we peg our economy against our resources? This is basically what Libya was trying to do before Gaddafi got killed. So we have these things that we need to do, but to make this happen, guys, we need to form alliances amongst ourselves. Sub the West. We can survive without them, but they cannot survive without us. We have everything we need, but the only thing we lack is the will, the willingness, the will to do. Because unfortunately, like one of my guests said, we have been trained by the hegemonic powers. We speak the language. They educated us. They gave us their religion. They gave us everything about them. We became like them. So we become our own enemies against our own selves because we became the perpetrators of evil against ourselves. So, guys, just to sum this up, looking at what we're doing, what we're saying here, we need to look inwards. We need to form alliances. The AES is saying, I say it again, the AES are saying a trend. They're saying basically, Kwame Nkrumah has said this before in the past. Obviously, remember the Casablanca group and the Morovia group, and they basically went against each other. Obviously, that was thwarted. This is another opportunity for Africa to do something different. And like Zili Dada was saying last week, you know what? This is it. This is the blueprint we need. What's his name? Martin Luther King talking about the blueprints for the black people. True legacy of Thomas Sankara and Nkrumah. Ibrahim Traore is giving them a blueprint. Let's embrace it.
So that's exactly what I was saying about the currency. I was like, is this not absurd that this small group somewhere else is dictating the terms on our large mass of minerals, and we are allowing it? And I see Fred Bantu said, what is it that makes African leaders so feeble, pathetic, and apologetic when confronting Western people? We have the resources, but not the will. So, what is it? Is it our low self-esteem? As we said earlier on, the whites are basically using us to fight each other. And we are. So how do we,
I think, Ntsiki, I first want to advertise my t-shirt, so please remove my name a bit like you do. I think we have a way of removing them. So I can show you my t-shirt a bit. The t-shirt I'm wearing.
Really. It goes when let me find a small.
It goes on its own. Yes, there we go. Yes, so the t-shirt I'm wearing is of Ibrahim Traore, and the writing is Sankara Reincarnate. Because for me, he truly is a Sankara Reincarnate. And on the issue of currency, I'm attending a conference that ended today on sovereign debt. Sovereign debt is state debt. It's how much a country has taken debt from your traditional lenders, IMF, World Bank, but now there's bilateral where we can take a loan from Germany or from China. That's between two countries, that's bilateral. But now you also have private lenders now, transnational corporations. Money itself has become a commodity, if we can understand that. Yes, under neoliberalism, money is no longer the means to something. Itself, it's become a commodity. You sell money, you buy and sell money. So I'm attending this conference and we are divided into groups and we are asked to humanize debt, to say when a country is highly indebted, it is women and children who get affected. So put a human face, say this is how it affects women. And there was somebody from Ethiopia who shared a story that it's still shattering me. I still do not believe it. That's the HQ of the AU, by the way. They defaulted on their debt. This thing is about 2 years ago. They couldn't pay their debt. So they had to go for what is called debt restructuring. When you go for debt restructuring, that's when they tell you, oh, lower your currency, lower this, lower this, lower this, for us to be able to give you a cutback on your interest rate or whatever and on the loan. And in that debt restructuring, it reduced Ethiopian currency by 30% overnight. 30%. Imagine the savings, the small business, the pension funds of civil servants. And then he told us that journey of around that 2 years ago of that 30% has now culminated into about 70% drop in the currency value. Then he proceeded to say, civil servants are sleeping in their offices. And he says, I'm not making it up. It was said by the Minister of Public Service himself on national television. Civil servants are sleeping in the offices because they cannot afford rent. So they use the toilets that's supposed to be an office toilet to wash. Their offices have become their homes. Lunchtime, they go out to the streets and beg. These are civil servants. So you can imagine the unemployed, what's their toll in Ethiopia right now. If Ethiopia is the seat of the AU, and that's what Ethiopia is going through, and that's how they are treated, where does that put the AU itself? I ask. So I think again, Tsigi, I'll leave it here and give to my brother. But yes, belonging to these bodies that force us to pay debt, I ask, why are we paying this debt? They have not paid reparations for slavery, for colonization, for neo-colonization. Why are we paying debt? If 54 countries come together and they say we are not paying from next year, what are they going to do? What are they going to do? If I owe Standard Bank R1 million, it's my problem. But if 80% of South Africans owe Standard Bank 1 million and all 80% say we are not paying, whose problem is it? Standard Bank's problem. It's no longer our problem. So why are we making debt our problem? Why don't we come together and say we are not paying? But we can't. Look at ECOWAS. Can ECOWAS come as a bloc and say we are not paying? France will speak to the French-speaking ones. Britain will speak to the English-speaking ones. France will pay money to the leaders of the French-speaking ones. Britain will pay. So we are not going to get to the unity and the one voice. It's very simple to deal with that. The AU must just make a decision and say from 2026, we are taking all that money we are owing you and we are investing it in our public service. You know, the more we pay debt, and we are not even paying debt, we are servicing the interest rate. We take from public services to pay debt, always. We undercut on underspend on public services, so we are able to pay debt. There's a statistic that came out in this conference on South Africa. I don't want to misquote it, but people must please go and check. But for South Africans, for instance, like for every rand, it's almost like 60-something cents is going for debt repayment. So what's left to invest in the public service? But we're never going to speak with one voice and do what the 3 Sahel countries are doing. For as long as we sit in these economic bodies that chain us. I mean, we have only looked at ECOWAS. I'm sure SADC has its own ghosts within. I am sure the East African community has its own ghosts within. I am sure COMESA has got its own ghosts within. I'm sure the Maghreb in the north, I mean, because we all do not have the money. So somebody's paying for all these regional bodies. They pay first for the regional bodies, then they pay for the AU itself. How much money are they investing here? You think you're going to give me money under capitalism and just say, oh, it was out of my goodwill. Now you go and enjoy your lollipop, enjoy my money. If they're paying from the sub-regional bodies up to the AU itself, so who rules Africa? That's why I love the 3 Sahel states, the Alliance of the Sahel States. You know, the ASS, in French they say AES. We should all support them. And I'm saying this with a straight face on this podcast. They don't pay me for their public relations. As a matter of fact, I've never been to Mali. Oh, I've been to Mali, sorry, correction. I've never been to Niger, but I went to Mali like in 2015. It was before this government. I've been to Burkina Faso. I don't have citizenship. I don't have special treatment in Burkina Faso. But I am saying this as a Pan-African. We need to force our governments to take a stand on the alliance of the Sahel states. We, just like we have shown what ECOWAS is, we need to show our governments for what they are. What's stopping them from embracing these countries? Truly, what is stopping them? They tell us, oh, it's because it's military governments. We are against military coups. We are also against corruption, but our governments are still corrupt. So what's the difference? We are also against people dying in public hospitals because there's lack of medicine or lack of equipment, but our governments are still doing it. So they break the law when it suits them. They can't break the law when it suits us, the citizens, because the citizens in our respective countries are supporting these 3 leaders. It is our governments that are not supporting them. The citizens are. If you wear a Traore t-shirt and you walk across, you fly across this continent, or you travel across this continent, everybody stops you. People are just like, you are wearing my favorite president's t-shirt, or you are wearing my favorite person's t-shirt. They even come closer, look at the face. You can see how they even, to the point of idolizing, which is wrong to idolize, but it's because there is scarcity of leadership. There's a dearth of leadership. So these people are doing exactly what their hearts are yearning for. I think I'll pause there and see.
You know, one thing I've just noticed as I was going through my notes, a notable example is China. China funded the new building, the Ecowas building, to the tune of $31.6 million. China. The new Ecowas building in Abuja. So if China is funding the building, guys, what does that tell you? You know, it beggars belief. So when we're talking about economic independence, we need to form alliances, you know, because, you know, a tree does not make a forest. We need to form alliances. But Africans need to dictate the kind of alliances we form. What are they bringing to the table? How does it impact the people? And this is the thing with politics and what we're doing, what politicians and gatekeepers are doing. I call them sellouts. What they're doing is basically they're mortgaging the lives of their people towards these people. So if China has built your ECOWAS building, and obviously China has so many projects in Africa at the moment, what are we doing? So basically all the resources, you know, I'm going to give an example. Just for example, in Nigeria today, you know, the new Dangote refinery that's just been built. Okay. The Nigerian government has basically sold out all the oil wells to foreign countries. So basically Nigeria's oil is not owned by Nigerians. It's owned by foreign entities. Now you have a refinery in Nigeria, built in Nigeria, because we've been dying to have a refinery in Nigeria. We haven't had one for long because they keep sabotaging the ones we have. And it's built, it spent a lot of money, almost over $20 billion to build this refinery. And then you find out that your own, or the oil that your country owns is not owned by your own country. So you have to go to the foreigners to buy oil to come and fill up your refinery. Make that make sense. So these are the kind of situations that Africa is facing. But we mortgage it, we give basically. So when these companies come in, they're not coming in. They're giving you money. They're just not giving you money. They want something back. It's not for nothing. They want something back. And when you sell out and give away all your resources to these people, imagine Nigeria not controlling its own oil wells, controlled by foreign entities in Nigeria. It's just the same for most resources. Same as Ghana as well when it comes to their cocoa beans as well. That's why we cannot dictate our own price. We can't dictate nothing because they control everything. So you can see the Sahel trio. They just kicked out. We talked about last time. They kicked out the Australian companies from Niger the other day, which is great. Burkina Faso has done the same thing. They're kicking them out. Burkina Faso basically nationalized most of the resources. Now they can take control of it, which is a good thing. Then you can dictate the people you deal with in your own terms, because No matter what, they want these resources. They cannot do without these resources. But we need to deal with them from a strength viewpoint. We can't be going to them so weakened. And with an alliance of a lot of African countries, you can imagine if we come together, let's just say 10 countries, we've got 3, let us say another 10 come together with those 3 people. You go in on a very strong, you go in with a power, a strength viewpoint to dictate, you know what, all of us, we're coming together, we're going to deal with you as a bloc. And this is what Africa needs to do. And that way they will stop the itsy bitsy where they keep picking one over the other. Which is, and guys, it sounds frustrating, and we're repeating ourselves like a broken records all the time. But it doesn't take Einstein to see what we need to do. But the challenge is, are we willing to do the work? Are we willing to make the sacrifices to make these things work? And this is the challenge African face. And it doesn't matter wherever you as an African. We're all going through this. We're all going through, even through our daily lives. We make decisions based on what we're going to eat, how we're going to eat. But the work that we need to do as Africans, we're not doing it. Because Africans, we have everything we need to do what we need to do, but we'd rather go into the systems that are already been set up. And most of the systems that you see in the world today, capitalist systems, are set up not for us to succeed. It's set up for you to be part of the matrix. As Africans, we can pull together and use our Ubuntu foundation, our community empowerment process, work together. Do you know how powerful we will be? This is the work we don't want to do because I think it's hard work, but we have to start from somewhere. We had these foundations before our history got interrupted anyway. We had these things in place. I was doing some research and I put a post out the other day, and the conclusion on that research was that African had functioning systems that worked. No matter what, we had this, they had this systems work despite all the fact that we had wars and against each other, but there was checks and balances. And before the colonial powers came to Africa, African systems worked. It works to empower the people. Things worked. So they're telling you that you don't know what you're doing or you can't control. It's a load of BS, excuse my language. So guys, anyway, the rest of my case.
There's a comment, they're saying China not only built the OAU premises in Ethiopia, they bugged it. Laughed my ass off.
Yes, I know that story. So you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay. So I love the fact that China's coming up because now we can actually unpack China a little bit and their rise to power. When China was broke and now really things were bad, there was Chairman Mao who closed off China, and China started building itself from inside. And now they are emerging as this superpower who are now working even with our colonizers. And the war is going to be between them actually in the end. So what can we learn from that? Because it seems as if that's what Africans are afraid of. And I think that's where we bring in religion. So can I hand over to you guys?
Yeah, you're touching a nerve, actually, Ntsiki, because the official salute of the Indian Defense Force is Jai Hindi. There is no DA or Helen Zille or any other person who will say, oh, but we are Africans too. You can't do that in South Africa because they will tell you South Africa belongs to all who live in it, both black and white. So you can't Africanize things here. You can't have a salute in the Defense Force that observes African spirituality because they will tell you, oh, but we members of the DA, white, are all we belong here. The French who are here belong here. It's a melting pot. So for them, though, India's gone through a cultural revolution, slowly but surely. That's why India is a producer. They produce, they don't just use. Yes, there are problems, but they are not where we are. India is a nuclear state, guys. It's a nuclear state, meaning what? Meaning America will never wake up and invade India, even in their wildest of dreams. Now, India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh were one country, for people who are not aware. At the eve of independence, the Muslims wanted a Muslim state. And the Hindu people were just like, but no, but for us, it's Hinduism. We don't play that game. We are Indian. And they split. Bangladesh further split from Pakistan because then you get the Indians that say within Pakistan, oh, but we are first Indians, our culture matters, then we are Muslims. Pakistan was like, no, we are first Muslims, then we are Indian. Then Bangladesh broke away. Now, I'm citing this to show you that a cultural revolution precedes self identity. Europe went through it through the Renaissance period. Renaissance is a nice French word that means reawakening. They were going through a cultural revolution. They emerged from there to conquer the world. China's gone through a cultural revolution. India's gone through one. America's gone through one. Malaysia's gone through one. Nations that become something go through a cultural revolution because that's where you identify yourself, you identify your foreign policy, you identify what you're about, you identify your unity strengths, you have a vision towards which to build. The AU has Agenda 2064. How are we going to achieve Agenda 2064 when the biggest bloc, Ecowas, is divided between itself? How will we achieve it when SADC looked as DRC was happening? DRC was a member of SADC. They asked to join the EU even as that war was going on. SADC looked when Burundi, Rwanda, and Uganda invaded DRC and killed a sitting president, Kabila the father. We looked, but DRC was within a bloc. So how are we even going to achieve an Agenda 2064 when we are so divided, when there's no cultural revolution, when there's nothing African about us? Ntsigi, we can't move. And you cited it, not me, religion. See, it when they say Jai Hindi in India, they are saluting Hindu gods with a straight face. So if you are there and you are a Muslim, you'll see to finish. You are in India. If you are there and you are a Christian, you'll see to finish. No, not in Africa. We are accommodative. South Africa is everything and anything. If South Africa truly was in the prostitution business, I think we would be sleeping with a customer at the rate of every minute. Because we are everything and anything but nothing. No identity. That goes for many other African countries, for all of them actually. Because most West African states that are Muslim are first Muslim, then African. Those that are Christian, they're first Christian, then they're African. So if your Africanness is secondary to anything, whether religion, whether money, whether capital, whether anything, if your being is secondary to something, how are you going to achieve anything when your beings come together? Because when you come together, it's actually more dangerous. You are bringing all those divisions to one room, which is why the AU for me is a very dangerous place, because we are bringing all these divisions together. How is the AU the seat of the whole of Africa, not having a single picture of a woman on its walls? We were never a patriarchal people. On the city where they sit, Addis Ababa, it was founded by Taitu Betule women. They can't even have the decency. Maybe they don't want to recognize Njingambande. Maybe they don't recognize Saronia Mangou. Maybe they do not recognize the Kentucky Queens. Maybe they don't recognize Yasantewa. Maybe they don't recognize Yoba Idia. Maybe they don't recognize Nehanda. At least recognize your own Taitu Betul. You are in the city that she founded. Not even her picture on the wall. So, and we are telling me about Agenda 2063. Is it 2063? I don't even know. 2063 or 64, one of the 2 years. I mean, if people say we are moaning and not giving solutions, they should understand not everybody understands the context. People know their problems, but most people can't contextualize what the problems are. And this is what we are doing. We're giving you the context of what our problems are. So if you want a solution, I've been giving it. It is very simple, guys. Eradicate Islam and Christianity. Embrace African spirituality. That's who you were. Yeah, Sandewa fought for African spirituality. When they wanted to capture the golden stool, which was the symbol of the national altar of the Ashanti people, they captured the king who was her son. And they said, if we think African spirituality is not important, why each time they invaded, the first things they captured were the objects that they found at our national altars? So they captured the king and they said, for us to give your king back, give us the objects at the national altar. They have one where they call it the golden stool. And the men were about to capitulate when Nia Santeba rose up and said, over my dead body, if the women must go out and fight this war alone until the last one of us perishes, then we will, because she was the queen mother, because she understood that this is a spiritual war. We cannot give them the golden stool because then they're going to use it to colonize us. You know, and they went to war and they never found that golden stool, by the way. History says it was actually unearthed after Ghana gained the so-called independence. So, Nzigi, we are refusing to embrace our spirituality. We make excuses. We make Jesus black. We say, but in Ethiopia, it didn't come with colonizers. Hello, guys. Ethiopians, we are still converts. It is in Acts 16, I think. One of your eunuchs converted, met the disciples on the way and converted. So it is still not natural to you. There is no conversion to African spirituality. It is because you are, and you are because it is. It is just like Ubuntu. There was no conversion, so you're still converts. Don't think we are smart when we are telling us, no, we're not colonized. It wasn't brought by white people. You are still converts. It's not natural to the way of life of who you were before you converted. I think I'll leave it there, Nzigi.
Yeah, just to back that up, guys. Like my sister said, divisions comes in different forms. Different forms. You can see, you got the SADC, you got the Ecowas, you got all the blocks within the regions, and everybody is pandering to their hegemonic powers. So you got divisions there already. So basically, for how do we unite when the French colonized countries are going with the French, the Spanish, the German? You basically got conflict already, because that's basically how the what's it called, the Congo Conference, you know, that came into play. And then now we're talking about religion. Then you got religious divisions. Then you got political divisions. Then you got ethnic divisions. So basically, this is one of the biggest challenges facing Africa today. We got divisions along so many lines that everybody's going to pick a battle. Me having conversation with people alone, it's busy hard work, because they will pitch you through whatever. So, oh yeah, I'm this Igbo, even Nigeria, Igbo, Hausa, you know. Sorry, guys. If it's not ethnic, then it's always religion, Islam, Christianity. If it's not that, it's true education, obviously, because the curriculum, they gave it to you. So you're speaking like a white man, you're not speaking like an African. Okay? So you got divisions all over the place. So for us to unite, it's become one of the biggest challenges facing Africa. And the way to do that, guys, is to completely decolonize your mind. Completely. My sister's talking because she's decolonized the mind. I've done the same. It's taking hard work, because you got to throw away everything that they gave you as an African person. Anything that the Caucasians gave you, got to throw it away. Be prepared to actually re-educate yourself, reorientate, recalibrate your brain to become African. You need to throw everything away. And when you throw that away, guys, what it does to you, it gives you a foundation to build. Then you start to see things differently. But if you're still locked into one division or the other, guys, you're never going to be free, because basically you're still going to be held psychologically, mentally by the tentacles of colonialism, because basically you're still fighting yourself based on the things, because everything that they're giving to Africans is basically it's got us to where we are today. It's intentional. The fighting, the infight is basically, they've planned these things. I say that clever, evil people, but that's what they've done. They got us to where we are today because they want us to be here. But in order for us to get away from it, we need to basically throw those things away. Everything, your capitalism is another problem. Everything that they've given, all the ism that they've given us, basically to divide us, guys. So for you to be truly African, for you to unite and do the work that we need to do, we need to decolonize the minds. That's the biggest challenge that faces Africa today. The moment we start decolonizing the minds, you see clearly, and then unity is the key. They divided us, but we need to unite. I know it's hard work, and I know based on what I'm saying, it's difficult, because you can see people arguing over silly things all the time. But we need to find like-minded people, the people that think like you, who are ready to do the work. I think that's basically what the challenge is. That's what we need to do. find people who think like it and start building, because you cannot wait for everybody. It's impossible, because some people are just gone. Like my last guest said on Sunday, some people are just gone. There's no saving some people. But there are some of us who are inquisitive, who are curious, who want to know. Let's reach out to those people. Let's start building, because all these bodies, all these organizations, as we all see here, guys, is basically creating division amongst us.
I love this comment here because it's not only just about China, actually. China is problematic. They enable corruption. When government officials demand bribes, the bribe is included in the loan and it's passed on to the taxpayer, which essentially means that all these debt issues and tax issues that we have with the West, we are paying for them. It's so wild. It's like we've been witchcrafted. I don't know if our guests want to have got any closing remarks, Mam Kanye.
Thank you so much, Ntsiki. You know the story of China. We need to put China under a microscope. I love teaching, and China has this thing of it's not actually China. It's, I think, England itself, because they decide over the English language. So there's this thing called teaching English to second language speakers, or teaching English as a second language. So you do courses. They are not long courses, like TEFL, TESOL. It's like 1-3 months courses. But listen to who they actually allow. It's UK, USA, New Zealand, Australia, Canada, Ireland, the independent Ireland, and then South Africa. And I think the only reason we are there is because of the presence of white South Africans. But ask South Africans who have applied to go and teach in China. They subject you to a process of listening to your accent. So China wants to learn English the British way. So China doesn't only want to learn English, they want to mimic British English. When the British themselves have accepted that there are different types of English pronunciation because they've taken things from the colonies. When you study English literature at varsity, they actually have sections where they accept that the colonies have expanded the English language and the pronunciation is different. I mean, within Britain itself, the pronunciation is not the same. Anyway, there's a London pronunciation, and I'm glad Oladele lives there. He can expound on this. But they will never hire Oladele to teach English in China because they don't like how he's pronouncing, because it leans towards being too African. Now, why is China in Africa then? In the first place, China must get the fuck out of this continent, because I have not seen China embrace us without conditions. When they come and build something, they bring their own workers. Why? Why? And then you look at the Chinese businesses that operate. I mean, we had a story somewhere near Lens, I think, I don't know if you remember it, where they were operating a factory and the workers were working at night and they used to lock them in and that thing burned down. And some of them actually burned to death. Those are the conditions China gives to whoever they employ in this continent. China talks to us, not with us. China is not different from the West for me. It's just, we are just replacing one colonizer with the other. They must all just get the fuck out of this continent. China and the West together. I'm not choosing, honestly. So yeah, I think those will be my parting shots. And Africans also, please, man, can we deal with our cognitive dissonance? For people who've never heard this term, cognitive dissonance is like a mental war that goes on in your mind all the time because you have been forced to live a split personality life. Your DNA is wired for you to be Ntu. You are Umuntu, you are a person. That's why we have Ubuntu. You are a person. But you live this other life for former British colonies, this English life for former French, this French life, this Christian life, this Muslim life that wires you towards Arabization, or the Christian life that wires you towards Westernization. And you are living two lives that don't talk to each other. It's split personalities. When you are at church, you do as the Westerners do, and then you come home and then you try and incorporate a little bit of your Africanness, but it does not agree because the scripture does not want that thing that you want to do, that goat you want to slaughter. The scripture does not agree with it. So we live such split personality lives. We are like mad people. Someone in the comments here said, religion aside, why are African minds so pliable? Because African minds are already involved in a tussle between truth and lie. And it is a constant battle because we are constantly being lied to by the media, by education, by your leaders. There's the latest lie I want to crack open on my brother Oladele. Maybe in your parting shots, you can comment on it. I hear they are normalizing what they call economic migrants. I'm told it's a nice thing. It's the right thing. Huh? For Zimbabweans not to finish school and come and clean toilets in South Africa is a good thing. To get a whole people across a border to go and work at restaurants in a neighboring country is a good thing. For people to cross the Mediterranean and die in droves to try and be economic migrants in Europe is a good thing. No. The only good thing about economic migrancy is when you are a professional and you receive a contract when you are still in your country and you can negotiate your pay and you go and you're going to lecture at the University of Manchester or wherever. These economic migrants, they want us to normalize because if you are speaking against it, then we are not liking Africans. I am not buying into it. We are not going to vote for governments that do nothing and then we are going to cross borders and be problems of other people. While that government is sitting there fending itself and delivering no services to nobody and doing what it likes because nobody is holding it accountable. We are not going to develop that way. Sontig, I think, yeah, that would be my parting shot. We need to investigate this thing called economic migrants because I look at how these so-called economic migrants are exploited, have no say, they get underpaid, they are given shitty working conditions, and we are saying it's normal. That's okay. That's globalization. I'm sorry.
But saying that, my sister, my last guest actually talks about this economic migration. And this is big business. This is big business for the hegemonic powers. You can imagine, like you said, they want, obviously, because there's the same jobs in the Western countries that the white people will never do. I've lived in the UK right now, and I've been here for basically all my life. And they open a quota every year for how many people they're going to let in. You know, and don't forget, for you to come into this country, for the benefit of you coming to the country, they think, okay, you come into you come into they sell themselves so well that you come into the civilized nation. We have all these things, they know how to market themselves. And for the privilege of coming to this place, because we're doing you a favor, you have to pay a particular fee to come in. They do this basically in every country in Africa. Nigeria, for example, I don't know, we tried to get my brother-in-law here, just a visitor's visa about 110 pounds. So if you want to come in as a worker, which they will give you the conditions, I don't know how much that is. But even saying that, my brother, he's in this country and he has to renew his visa to stay in the country. And guess how much he's going to pay a year? About £5,000 just to stay in this country. So you can imagine this is a business for them. So basically you're cleaning bombs, which is a lot of what people do because you're not qualified, but at the same time they're making money off you and they dictate who comes in and comes out. So it doesn't matter what you do, they have a quota, so they can reject you and basically you don't get the money back. And this is basically what we are doing as Africans when we leave our continent. Why the reason why we live in our continent is because we're not doing the work to build our base. I was posting a video this morning, and the video was saying that Africans are gonna be shit at as long as we don't build an African base. It doesn't matter where you are, in the Caribbean, in America, in the UK. If Africa hasn't got a strong base, the Chinese, nobody can mess the Chinese up in America. Nobody can mess up in Indians in India. Even the Arab countries, nobody can mess them up because they got economical power. But Africa is the only continent in the world that people sneeze at and people just do anything to because we haven't got no base. So basically, Africa needs to build its base. Trying to get away from Africa to go to these places where they merely tolerate you and they basically bring you in as a token of basically, and what they're doing, basically you're paying to, because, you know, Africa has the youngest population in the world. In Europe, the people are getting old. They can't pay into the system no more. So what you're doing is you're coming to pay into the system that's going to benefit other people. Because a lot of you don't qualify to actually get pension in the system. So you come in here to pay into the system that's going to fund people who are getting older because they're not having kids no more in this continent. They're basically, Africa's, you know, we have the youngest population in the world. So Africa, in as much as you want to get away, but basically you are pawns in the game, you're being used to feed a system that you're not going to benefit from. The amount of money, I don't know how much, but the amount of money they make in visa fees, in relocation fees, in all these African countries, imagine, it goes into trillions of pounds every year for the privilege of coming to the plantation. I call it the plantation because in those days, you know, they put shackles on your neck, yeah, to come here involuntarily. But now you're paying for the privilege to come to the plantation, you know, willingly. So it doesn't make a difference. But the key here, guys, my party show is we need to do the work to build Africa. Africa has everything it needs. The rest of the world cannot, like I said before, the rest of the world cannot do without Africa. But Africa needs to build itself. And we have to have the effrontery and the guts and the willingness and the unity to build ourselves up. Otherwise, we're going to keep repeating this, like, you know, we're going to keep repeating this thing all the time if we don't do the work. And we need to leave a legacy for the children to come. And like I said, some of us are far gone, but we got kids coming and they're looking at us to do something different. And the Sahel trio, instead of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, are making a difference in terms of telling us, okay, we need to create a legacy for the kids that are coming behind us. So that's my parting shot for today. Africa, just unite. Thank you.
Thank you so much. These sessions are always so enlightening. And I'm looking forward to next week, Thursday, as we unpack some more. Thank you to everybody in the comment section. The comment section was busy today.
Yeah,
very
I
busy.
can see that.
Right? Everybody is engaging. We have 217 people here, but I see
Wow.
most of these people are on Twitter. So please, guys, don't be shy to support the Moya podcast. Come through. Also, the Emerging Alkabulan is co-streaming this. You'll put your channel there, Oladele, so that I can post there in the comment section. And again, once again, to Mam Kanye, who is the teacher of all Africans. You know, yesterday I went to a function and it had multiple African states. And when I was like, yeah, guys, well, you know about Mam Kanye, there was a resounding yeah. You know, so everybody's in agreement that the president of Africa is Mam Kanye. There's the link for the Emerging Alkabulan network. Obviously, guys, we have to work as a unit. We have to work past the Afrophobia. We have to work as across the countries, because these countries were not created by us. So we just need to put down the brainwash and just work together. It's fantastic that we are speaking across the different countries. We're on the right path. Once again, please remember to like, share, and subscribe to the Moya podcast. And we'll see you guys again next week, Thursday. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.